And good morning to everyone who is tuned our way. It's time for People's Voice. If it's Sunday, it's time for People's Voice, and I'm here with you until the 11 o'clock hour. My guest, who will be the voice of today, the voice of the people, of course, he does represent those persons who believe that what he's saying makes, uh, you know, sense in one way or the other, because everyone have the right to think for themselves, and not everything that is said means that you have to agree with it, because you'll see it from a very different perspective. But I'm so happy to have here with me a gentleman who from time to time have played roles in this community that is often gone unnoticed, with the exception of one time when he was really in the limelight. But his name is worth mentioning as someone who can provide some wisdom for us. So, with that said, let me let you know that my guest today is Mr. Ed Gumbs, and I want to know from him, why is he so concerned about what's happening in this country to the point where he's willing to engage in these type of political discussions, and hear what he has to say. With that said, let me welcome Mr. Gumbs to the program today and say good morning to you. Mr. Gumbs, it's good to have you. I'd like you to bring that microphone a little bit closer to you, yes, because, yeah, very well. Because I know you have a big voice, but at the same time, I don't want you to sound as if you're far off. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Wendell, and thanks for inviting me one more time again in your radio program. You know, I love to make radio. May I make a correction that a couple of weeks ago I was here and I made a mistake that I didn't like, and I want to correct that. Okay. I was talking about the discussion between VSA and the Prime Minister and so on, and I said that the SG of VSA started a case against the Minister of General Affairs, yes. And that was wrong. I'm terribly sorry about that. I'm ashamed of that, because it was the cabinet chief of VSA, yes, that started the case and not the SG. So by this, I wanted to correct that. I'm sorry, and I do apologize to the SG of VSA for giving the wrong information.
Is that in any way have anything to do with your mind processing the position of the person who actually brought the case against the Minister of General Affairs, which is the chef, the cabinet
chef,
which is
of
very
the Minister of, yes. That's a political appointee.
Yes.
And that's not the SG. The SG is
a
public servant,
yes,
that makes a career, and she was not involved at any way and any mean with that, because it was a question between the cabinet of the Minister of VSA and the Minister of General Affairs. But
yeah, how would you like to be remembered in St.Maarten, bearing in mind that I think I'm doing an injustice to introducing you as whatever in the capacity of being my guest this morning. So I would like you to best describe what you want the public to think of you, even, God forbid, that you're no longer here, because we expect one day that we'll no longer be around. Because even my person, I'm expecting that one day I won't be.
My friend, I have 17 years more to go. I intend to become 94.
Yes.
I talk to my Lord and I ask him, Lord, if it is allowed to me,
yeah,
give me those years. Let me become 94. So I ain't planning to leave yet. But when you ask me what motivates me, at the age of 12, walking in Curacao with my mother at my mother's hand,
yes,
born on St.Maarten in Dutch Quarter, my mother. Anyway, walking with her in Curacao, and then I told her, my, why is all these Dutch people that I see around me, they have everything to say. What is that? She said, boy, that's politics, and don't get involved in that, because politics can make you crazy. I said, that's where I have to be. Because if they are involved in my life, then I should be involved in politics too. Because then I take my own life. And that was from my 12th, my motivation. And I really mean it. I said to my mother, one day when I grow up, I'll go to Holland. I'll go in that kitchen. I want to know how they make that stew that makes them all that big. Because I want to become big too.
Yeah.
So I'm going
When you say big, you mean tall or fat?
big in all means.
Okay,
but
by all
anyway,
means,
I put it in my head, and I always, in school time too, I always had to have the word. I always put up the discussion because
Okay.
I was the man of starting the discussion
Hey.
because I like the public discussion because there's where the people get wiser. Discussion with each other makes you stronger. It never weakens you.
Yeah.
Though it can look like that, but it makes you stronger. So I have a solemn belief in the public discussion. And I have lived in several countries. But it shouldn't be going about me. But let me say this though. I lived in 5 countries. In 5 countries, I was involved with politics because from my 12s, I started out in Curacao. Then I went to Holland, got involved in the politics, came back to Curacao, got involved in politics. I ain't going to mention it, but from Curacao, I went to St.Maarten, got involved in the politics. Then I went to Anguilla, got involved in politics. And then I went to Suriname, got involved in politics. I am all politics because I believe they mind in your business, so I'm going to mind in politics. So I give and anything I say, whatever I say, I just try to, exchange information because I do believe in the strength of the public discussion. It makes us richer and it makes us sharper and we have to do something with it. That's my whole motivation. I hope that's clear enough.
Yeah, well, and I will put it in the form of you would want to consider yourself a political pundit, where you hold public discussions about public policies and politicians.
Yeah. And it's not about criticizing. It sounds a lot of critics, but it's not about criticizing. It is about making you sharper in whatever you're doing.
Okay.
By confronting you with what you're doing and asking you by that, rethink. Think about what you're doing. Think about where you're getting yourself involved. And that is a whole discussion with the Prime Minister of St.Maarten at this moment. How did we got so far? How did we got so far that the Prime Minister of this country, the Honorable Prime Minister Luc Messelina, Dr. Luc Messelina, could get him in a sort of public discussion with a political nominee. His Minister of VSA appointed a chef de cabinet, and they got in such a public discussion with each other, and then all reasonability went out of the window, and it was all ego, all about it. I am going to show you who I am and what I can. That's wrong. The Prime Minister of this country is the Prime Minister of everyone. He is the Prime Minister of St. Maarten, and he should be aware at all time that he is the Prime Minister, that he had the egards to be the Prime Minister, and not to get involved in this kind of petty discussion. That's what I call them. And that leads to terrible decisions because the ego is working too hard and it takes out the rationality. And I'm going to show.
Okay. You have to take into consideration 2 things. One, he is the chair of the Council of Ministers as Prime Minister,
Of course.
Minister of General Affairs. And at the same time, he is in whatever type of dialogue with a member of his party, which is one of the one of the ministers in the Council of Ministers. So there is room here for miscalculation rather than, I don't think he would feel like he has to just play dead. He has something to say, and maybe it was not the right thing to do. Have you seen it
But
anywhere like that?
Let me put it like this. Let us remember, in the first instance, that country St.Maarten just this year made it's going to make on the 10th of October its 16th anniversary as an autonomous country in the Dutch kingdom. 16 years. Remember, we came from far, from being under the yoke of Curacao, and we wanted to get us, and we went for country St.Maarten. And it wasn't easy. I have to mention two persons in this situation. I have to mention my dear and honorable friend, William Marlin, who as in those days as member of the Council of St.Maarten, with his advisor, the late governor Eugene Holiday. They've been to Holland to several discussions.
Former governor.
Yeah,
You
the
said
former,
late.
yeah. Okay.
You said late.
Right, you're right to correct me. The former governor Eugene Holiday, with others, they've been to Holland several times and was fighting for the autonomous status of St.Maarten, which Holland didn't want to give to St.Maarten. But these people, I mentioned this too by name, but I mean the whole group, but these people, they fought for that and they insisted. And when Holland said, I'm sorry, I don't think I can give you all that because you are not so far as yet. And William stood up and he said, I am sorry to tell you, sir, we are so far and we're going to get it because we're going to deliver what we have to deliver. I remember those words very sharp. And then they decided, okay, you're ready? Let's see. We're going to give you the autonomous status. And that's why today we are the country St.Maarten. And 16 years, we're struggling, we're stumbling here. But believe it, we have gone a long way. There's a long way yet to go. But we have to appreciate what we have achieved up to now. And we have made mistakes. And of course, the older politicians, they made space or they were pushing out by the younger generation. And they have their own means to go around things. So we all have to get accustomed to that. And let me say, I say anything that goes wrong with our youth politician, they have to solve it themselves because it is their future. So if they do it wrong, one way or the other, they'll have to correct it themselves because it is their future. I am a man of 77. I have had a long political career all over. And I realized that, young people come in and it's their time. So we have to make the room for it. But we always have to be available to say a word, to try to move it in a direction that we rather have it seen done than going in the wrong decision. But it's a question of communicating with each other, listening to each other, but respecting each other's position too, because today it is the young generation that have taken their own future in their own hands. And whatever they do wrong, again, I repeat, they'll have to correct it themselves. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they forget, let's say, the senior people or whatever. It can have, because we have a big problem. And I must say this point of view. You remember a couple of weeks ago, I told you one of the problems that we have is these high wages we pay parliamentarians and ministers. In 4 years' time, they can make over $500,000. None of them, and I dare say it, maybe some had businesses and made good money, but in 4 years, more than $500,000. So when these people came into parliament with this big salary, they had a part of the political problems. They had the problem of, what am I going to do with this $500,000? I have to invest. I have to do something with that money to make my future better. And they're always worrying more of investing with the 500 million, the $500,000, $500,000. That was a big problem, and they were more busy with that, and rightfully, because they have a future, they have a family, they have children, they have other things. So they were trying to see how to go about with so much money, which they weren't accustomed of having available. They didn't have it in one thing, but in 4 year time, they would make $500,000. So they start thinking, what am I going to do with them and how am I going to invest it? And that was a bigger problem. So when we made them member of parliament, we gave them that problem too, that how are they going to deal with that $500,000 in the 4 year time? What future would they be building for themselves? They were supposed to work on the future of St.Maarten, but they also had their own personal future. Because earning so much money and not doing anything with it, that would make a problem. So they had to, and when in 2010, I believe, the island council raised the wages of an island councillor to the wages that the member of parliament was going to make, $11,000 a month. They said, and now we're going to get the creme supreme of the island, because now people out of the business or with a lot of experience, they will come into parliament and share that experience with us. My friend, we are 16 years busy with parliament. That prognostication that they made, that we're going to get the creme of the creme, we didn't make it true. When we got young people in parliament earning a lot of money and having to find a way how to deal with their money. So we gave them an extra problem. We didn't get the experience we were expecting to get. I have to see the first captain of industry that left his post and became a member of parliament to share his experience or her experience with the country. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen.
That was the view then, I believe, because I remember that being expressed, that no, we would have professional, I think that was the word
and
used.
We would have paid them 24 hours. They
were supposed to
7 times 24.
Yeah, they were supposed to be fully committed to the job too. But you have members of parliament today who are still juggling with other jobs.
Of course, that was one of the problems. No, let me say this one. We had parliamentarians who said, I want to be parliamentarian, but I want to remain doing my legal work.
Yes.
I want to be
representing people still.
Representing people, I want to be a lawyer. We had member of parliament that say, yeah, I want to go to parliament, but I want to keep doing my medical job as gynecologist, gynecologist. That must be possible. While when we were installing the parliament, we talked about people being committed for 24 hours to that position. There was no space for doing anything other than being a parliamentarian. Mm-hmm. And still we had parliamentarians coming in and saying, yes, but I want to keep doing this. Yes, I want to keep doing that. Then when I heard that, I thought, you can't mean this serious, because it is stated. We said it's going to be a full committed job, for the country of St. Maarten, and how you want to share it with your private practice too. That is, and we're paying you $10,000, $11,000 a month, and still you want to keep keep doing your profession, and there were more of them. And as I said, some of them was so surprised with that much of money and power, and they had to find a way to deal with it, to do something with it, because they knew they wouldn't be member of parliament for their lifetime.
I think I have to disagree to a certain extent because there is a school of thought that the more you get, you're never satisfied. So you
human.
always exactly. So you would always. So I don't see it as a problem that they were wondering what to do with all this money now. It's just that they have moved from one stage to a next, and if they can continue to make more, they will.
Yeah, but I think I haven't been clear, because if that's the impression you got, then I haven't explained it good, and I blame myself for that. But what I'm trying to say is, if in a certain moment you come in a position to earn a lot of money, one thing's going to happen for sure. You want to earn more.
Yeah.
Because it was easy. You got the votes, and you got this big
Salary.
$500,000 in 4 years. So, I mean to say, and then you say, if I can make it in 4 years so much, what will happen in 8 years? It will be $1 million. And if I do this and that, it can be 2 million. Of course. And that's normal. And I'm not blaming anyone for that. Because I believe if I was in the same position, maybe, I would have thought in that same direction too. What would I do with my money? How could I invest it? But
Would you say that if you have to make a comparison with the other countries in the kingdom, would you say that they're making a lot of money or too much money?
too much money. I really mean it. I mean, and we didn't attract those people that we expect to attract, because that money probably didn't interested those people. We attracted, I have to be careful. We attracted another type of parliamentarian than we expected to attract. And then it goes in another direction. But again, don't blame alone. Understand that we're 16 years busy, and we have a lot more to do and to learn. Honest.
All right. I was wondering, what else would you say that makes you concerned to the point where you are willing to be a voice, have these type of discussions, as much as you did mention that you always was involved in political discussions just about everywhere you live. But is there anything that you view or you see here that warrants your professional input as far as having open discussions about what's going on?
It might sound silly, but my mother, who was born in Dutch Quarter, in the yard where Jules Lambert and his family lived, my mother was born in that yard because my grandmother and grandfather was living there. And it was my mother's wish that one day one of her sons, one of her children, would work on St. Maarten, on her birth country, and deliver their part.
Okay.
I took that role on me. Yes, I came to St. Maarten willingly to comply with that wish of my mother.
Okay.
Because she's a St. Maartener, and she was a proud St. Maarten, and she was talking with a lot of pride on her St. Maarten.
Okay.
I had another brother, a younger brother. He also tried to come to St. Maarten. He was in for the position of director of TLM, I believe, but one way or the other, it didn't went through. But he became a deputy in Curacao for another political party. But some of us always had a thing with St. Maarten. And I have it very strong with St. Maarten, because anytime I talk of St. Maarten, the island I love. I remember my mother. I remember my mother playing in the yard. But she was a baby, she was young because they left Dutch Quarter at a young age because my grandfather and grandma and my grandfather went to work for Shell in Curacao. And then they went down to Curacao. But they have installed that in us. St. Maarten, love for St. Maarten. And I love this rock.
Okay. Mr. Ed Gumbs, he is my guest for today. I consider him a political pundit, but of course he has other background information or background experience that enables him to take other positions, because he also sat on the board of GB and was very much involved in things here on St. Maarten. So I'm happy to have his voice being the voice for today on People's Voice. We'll take a quick break. I'm hearing my music, which lets me know it's that time. When we come back, we'll continue a conversation with him right here on People's Voice. Okay, welcome back to the program for today, Sunday. Ed Gumbs is the voice on People's Voice today, and he's here with me talking about his political experiences and, of course, his input thus far in what's happening on St. Maarten, which, according to him, is pretty much as a result of love for this country where his mom was born and fulfilling a wish that his mom had. I think that is important, Mr. Gumbs, because then people can understand and align themselves with your motivation and appreciate also what you bring to the table.
I have to express my gratitude to a good friend of mine, Maurice Lake, the former minister Maurice Lake, that he took the chance of getting me on the board of GB, executive supervisory board of directors of GEB, and it went by the labor union. The wife they proposed me. And he accepted it and he appointed me. And I was very grateful to him for that. But my whole career, I spent 46 years of my life working, studying, working, falling in love, getting married, cheating on my wife, getting divorced. I give you the whole length. I have spent 46 years in Holland. I have given a lot of my life. I did board work. I was in several boards, always when it concerned Antillians, Peruvians, or Sudanese. I was in a board one way or the other because I was always asked for boards as a financial man because that's my background.
Okay.
I'm a financial controller, and any board I sat on, I was always the treasurer.
Okay.
They love me as a treasurer. So that's my whole experience. I have devoted my life. I can say that. Yes, I have devoted my life to my people. Not only as a politician, but in practical sense. Because if anybody had a problem, they always knew they could knock on the door by Edwin Gumbs and they will be heard. They will be let in, they will get a cup of coffee, a piece of cake with it, and then we can sit down and we can talk and discuss whatever needed to be discussed. Because I was always available. My wife got crazy of me, my former wife. She really got crazy of me.
But for the next 17, which you've just mentioned, you're going to be around for another 17 years.
Yes.
What your future continued input looks like?
It looks like, I think we have a lot of development yet to have in St. Maarten. And I feel myself with my 77 years young and passionate, and I have the strength to work, to serve my country. But I am not looking for any position from any person because that's not me. I am available whenever they need me, for whatever they need
As
me.
a professional, you mean?
As a professional, you can ask me, and I will think along. And if that means that I will have to do something, I don't. I'm not afraid of doing anything because I can do it. But I'm not. I'm not applying for any position. Honestly, I always like to inform people. I want to be honest to people.
What would you say, if any, that the stumbling that we might have endured since we became country within the Dutch kingdom up until now, because you've seen some of the political developments, you've even referenced how hard some of the politicians who were fighting for the new status for St.Maarten may have worked in terms of lobbying and making sure that the position is given to St.Maarten to handle themselves, because the Dutch always was skeptical of our resource issues because they felt that we still lack a lot of human resource to function.
The Dutch always disrespected St. Martiners. I'll say it quite bluntly because they disrespected it. They thought of St. Maarten to be the country of crooks. So any Dutchman, exception here or there, but any Dutchman that came down to St. Maarten, he came to prove to the St. Martiners that with him around, they can't be cheating, they can't be stealing, they can't be doing this because they're going to be corrected.
But Mr. Gumbs, isn't it true, though, that they have a very long history of being corrupt themselves?
Name me a country that doesn't have a history of corruption. Name me one.
Okay.
I ain't even asking two, I'm asking one. It's part of being a human being. I mean to say, when suddenly, after Irma hit this country, terrible, and the United Nations funded a fund of 2 billion for restoring the, of course, politicians in this country, on this island, would asking, what's going to happen with those 2 million? Where are we going to be participating? How are we going to get involved in that? So everybody was interested. Who's going to, because it was always, yeah, there's 2 million, but it has to be dealt with by the Dutch. You understand? The Dutch has the ultimate word in how that money is going to be spent, who's going to get what, and who's going to do this. The Dutch always give the St. Maartener the example of how you can corrupt the system. I'm saying, I know what I'm saying. It's tough, but I have been a politician in Holland. I gave my life to politics, believe me. Ook in Holland, and I work hard in it. But the Dutch was the example for the corrupt St. Maartener. Let me put it that way. Because he showed them, the Dutch showed us how to do it. And when we became good in it and became better than them in it, they got angry because we were pushing them out. We wanted to say it ourselves. We wanted to do it ourselves. We thought we were big enough to do it ourselves. And they said, that amount of money, with that kind of money, I can't trust you with that kind of money. I have to be there. You see, it sounds so simple. And I'm not against the Dutch because I have married the mother of my children, was such a beautiful Amsterdam lady. She gave me 2 children, a son and a daughter. And they are beautiful, prachtige mensen, as I say. I have nothing against the Dutch. My best friends are Dutch. I have lived 46 years in Holland. They call me the Black Dutchman. I remember how William Marley was teasing me, the Dutchman. But I have never been a Dutchman because I have always felt myself, and it sounds like, more St. Maartener than ever felt myself Curaçaoan.
Okay.
I was more St. Maarten. So, what you want us to do? And when there's things to be done, they always would tell us how to do it, what we have to do, who have to be in what kind of. They always want to impose on us what they want. And that, I have fought that from the age of 12. That on Curacao, I saw Dutchmen getting on all kind of positions and always saying what has to be done, what needed to be done. And sorry.
Do they understand that by imposing this on us that they're going to get certain amount of resentment? Because they, we our descendants were slaves. And
Of course it has to do with the slave history. And listen, the slave master in the Dutchman has never disappeared, didn't die, still lives in it. But most Dutchmen control the slave master in themselves better.
Is it something that you can propose as to how we should deal with them when it comes to? I mean, you live among them. For quite some. How should we?
Confrontation. One, study the material very good. Know that you know what you're talking about, that you're aware of what is playing, and confront the Dutchman with that knowledge. And tell the Dutchman, listen, partner, if you want to do business with me, you start by respecting me. Because if you can't do that, please go back to Europe. We don't need you down here.
Have you seen anyone in Curacao or St.Maarten who have adopted such a way of
Attitude?
dealing? Yes, to deal with the Dutch.
Of course we had that. Of course we had them in Curacao. I mean, one of my best friends, the former Prime Minister Don Martina of Curacao, listen, he was straighten the Dutchman out at any moment. Leo Chance, our own lovely Leo Chance, when they told him we can't build deeper, then Leo Chance told them, then you learn to build higher. Then we go up. Confront them. Be the man you should be. Defend your country. Defend your rights. Because once you show the Dutchman that you know what you're talking about and that you're insisting on being respected, they turn around and they respect you with that respect because they also don't want to have any headaches. You think the Dutchman is interested in headaches of St.Maarten, of Curacao? You're crazy. They have bigger fish to fry. But there are some, especially in The Hague, that's their kingdom. The Caribbean is their kingdom, where they go whenever they want to. When it's getting too cold in Holland, they come down here to do some kind of a inspection or whatever it is, and they think it is their domain. But we should confront them. But too much of us on St.Maarten here adores the Dutchman. Because if the Dutchman says it, it's good. Then it's good for us. Because the Dutchman is approving it.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. Grow up.
What about at times being dependent on the Dutch to bail us out of some of what, although they have a certain obligation because we are part of the kingdom, and if they are supposed to, as well as Curacao and Aruba, yes, we're supposed to work together in the kingdom. But when we constantly express dependency on them, doesn't that give them some power and authority?
Let me try to explain that. You know, I can't get the right words in English now, but the statute was an excuse of the Dutchman, who was a colonizer. Don't forget that. They colonized Indonesia.
Yeah.
A big country. And that statute, because being smaller than Indonesia, but Indonesia also belonged to the kingdom of the Dutch, they needed a sort of law arrangement that they can, as a smaller country, dominate the kingdom. It was meant for Indonesia, but Indonesia became independent, and then they remained with Suriname and the Dutch Antilles. And okay, the statute constituted, but it was never meant for these small countries. It was meant for Holland to control the kingdom as a smaller part of that big kingdom. But it didn't work very long. But now they were there. And what we, as Antillians, of Dutch Caribbeans, like to do is to use all the possibilities that statute gave us. Because it was meant to make the smaller stronger. And we are smaller. So we could use the same arrangements of the statute, but we didn't. But we have to do our homework. That's the whole thing. Study it, girl. Prepare yourself. Know what you want. And then you go for it. That's what I have to say that we, St.Maarteners, we have to be more serious with that. But we take life and,
It seems somewhat that we are pretty comfortable with the way the system is, because to some degree they benefit from how it is.
Of course, because as long as the Dutch don't come here and think they really have something to say, say that. But the whole system, the legal system, ask yourself, when you're talking about corruption, you have one person being corrupted, being paid, and you want that one person that realize that corruption, pays and but who ends up in court? Who ends up before the green table is the one that is being corrupted, not the one that is paying or doing the corruption. No, they get away. If they go, they make a deal with the justice and so pay a fine or get some kind of a warning, and they leave the country and the home country. But it is the one that has been corrupted, there's the underdog, he ends up in Point Blanche.
Yeah.
That's where he'd end up.
I was writing while you were speaking, but that's exactly what I was putting here. I find that the system is pretty harsh and hard on the local, when in fact, when someone else of a different stature might have done a similar thing, they get a slap on the wrist.
The other one wasn't being corrupted. They were corrupting somebody else. And of course they can get the clap on the wrist. That's what they get. They get away with it. But, I don't say that illegal matters should be ignored. That's not what I'm trying
You're not condoning it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But I say you have to do it for the full strength, the full stretch of it. The corrupting person and the person that is corrupted. Both are wrong. But we end up only with the person that is corrupted. Say, you shouldn't be corrupted. You shouldn't. Why don't we say, and you shouldn't try to corrupt the person. You're worse. Because you try to corrupt.
Well, we've seen some folks who have gotten into trouble with the law. I'm talking about Dutchmen here on St.Maarten. And some of them, basically, after everything, they disappear. They go right back
But
to
that's the
Holland.
deal. That's the deal. Because they have a way out. They can go back to the small village in Krabbedijk or wherever the name is. They can go back there and hide themselves. And nobody knows what happened down in Philipsburg.
What kind of commitment should we look for from our politicians in order to give us confidence that we can trust them to move this country forward, even though we're still in the kingdom?
Yeah, but it sounds like I'm very anti-Dutch, but believe me, there are Dutch people on St.Maarten that will give their life for St.Maarten. There are teachers that came here with love and helped build up our educational system. There are nurses that came from Holland that helped build the health care here. And these people were devoted to St. Maarten. And most of these people never went back to Holland. Because, we, the friendly island, we gave them a home. We gave them a place where they can feel themselves useful to the community, and they made use of it, and they stayed here. You have them. So it's not that we're against me. And again, my mother's children, it's Dutch. I have lived my whole life in Dutch, in Holland. So it's the type that lately we get. We get these types coming in by entering the plane on Schiphol. They have one thing in, I'm going to clean up that mess. They don't know with who they're dealing with because I'm going to teach them. Wrong attitude.
Something else that is of concern, and maybe you can speak to it. A lot of these politicians, the new ones, these new political parties in Holland, are not even knowledgeable or aware of the Caribbean part of the kingdom, and this is like new to them. And I saw, I think, is in St. Eustatius, the politicians there seem to have a problem with the new one that is now State Secretaries, I believe, for Internal Affairs. Anyway, one of them paid a visit to St. Eustatius. And
the State Secretaries.
Yeah, and
he was
it appears as if they don't even understand what's going on. So how effective can they be if they are not open to now learn what is going on in the Caribbean part of the kingdom to the point where
the Caribbean is interesting for the Caribbeans, for we local people. Nobody in Holland living in IJsseldijk, living in Krabbedijk or wherever really thinks on St.Maarten, what's happening here. You know, in the old days, it was the Social Democratic Party, the Labour Party, that was interested in the Dutch Antilles. And they were always coming to the Dutch Antilles, trying to help development ahead and so on. But it was out of the Social Democratic gedachtegoed, the ideas, the ideology. But the liberals, the capitalists, wasn't interested in St.Maarten, Curacao, because that was not that interesting. And if the Social Democrats wanted to spend their time with those people, let them go.
Yeah,
that's the way it was.
Mr. Gumbs, it's like the New Farmers Party who
the BBB.
Yeah.
The
They just spring on the scene because of what's happening in Holland. They were able to win a lot of the municipality seats, and to the point where they got involved in the big election and actually won most of the seats, not most, but a lot of the seats, to the point where they were playing a role.
Yes, of course.
In the majority formation.
My friend, blindfold one of those members of BBB, put them in front of a card, and tell them, try to direct me where is St.Maarten, or try to direct me where is Curacao. I tell you, they'll show you Russia, Moscow, or anything, but they will never even know where that is, because it's not interesting to them. It's not of their interest. Again, it was the Social Democrats of the Labour Party that had something with the Caribbean. But the rest didn't have it. And now with this new party, they're more for Europe, they're international. We grind food. But for ourselves, we ain't grind food. We're the main dish. And we have to take care of ours, of our families. And so,
is that a message for our local politicians when it comes to how much of a commitment that should go or energy into doing more for ourselves?
We have to be more aware of who we are, of what we are, and not always looking for, because it looks like we're always looking for the consent of the Dutchman. If the Dutchman says it's good, it is good. Nonsense. Grow up.
What about the debt situation that we have with the Dutch? Isn't that kind of binding us to remain in a system that probably we should be looking out of?
It's a revolving problem. Financial problems we always had, and we always looked at the Dutch because they told us when in the United Nations was speaking about slavery, finishing slavery, the Dutch stood up and said, "We've done it others. We have autonomous parts in our kingdom.
Yeah, yeah.
And we take care of our people, so we don't have to abolish any slavery because we don't have slavery. They are partners." And so we would talk, and we would take care of them.
Is that true?
What is that so? If they took care of us?
But what they declare in the United Nations.
They declare because United Nations wasn't pleased with the whole system of autonomous state and autonomy for the countries. No, they wanted, as they thought, people should be free.
Yeah, yeah.
And autonomization is a form of colonialization.
Yes.
It still is a form of colonization. The simple fact that we have a governor representing the king.
Yes.
It's a colonial matter.
Colonial concept.
It's a colonial concept.
Yes.
But okay, that's but we can live with it up to a certain extent.
Yes, yes.
But make no mistake about it. I tell you, that farmer in Leerdam or any other place working his land, he will never have St.Maarten, Curaçao, Aruba, Bonaire, St.Maarten of Statia or Saba in his mind. Yes, the land he's working on, that's what is on his mind. Not we Caribbean.
It wasn't this the unification of the farmers that gave that party such a strength?
Well,
and people actually support them.
No, but the farmers in Dutch policy always had a role. Always. From Boer Koekoek. I don't know if you can remember that name. It was a famous farmer that started a political party too, and he was very known. It is nothing new. The BBB is just a new form of the Dutch farmers participating in the politics.
Yeah.
Because they were always there because that are the green lungs of Holland.
Yeah. Mr. Gumbs, I'm looking at my clock and I'm hearing the music in my ear. What would be your final statement to just button up the whole conversation that we had this morning?
I have tried to give a picture of all the possibilities we have, what we have to do. And I'm saying to the St.Maarten, let's concentrate on what we yet have to do and concentrate less on what we're not doing. Concentrate less of passing motion of no confidence by 3 ministers. I want to say this though, quickly. And in that same motion they passed, these 3 ex-ministers, they signed for a Prime Minister of General Affairs. There is no Prime Ministers of General Affairs. There is a Prime Minister and there is a Minister of General Affairs.
Yes.
But in that motion, they're speaking to inform the Prime Minister of General Affairs. Shame on you! Nobody read it. But it's a shame. You can't say Prime Minister of General Affairs.
The Prime Minister who is Minister of General Affairs.
Who's also Minister of General
Affairs.
You know, but it's these kind of things. Let's stop bickering on each other. Let's talk about St.Maarten, the route forwards for St.Maarten, for our new youth. And don't forget to take our seniors along.
Yeah.
Because it's not only the youth, also the seniors. I'm 77.
That's the nicest way that I can button up this conversation, because I think some attention needs to be paid to seniors and the policies we have regarding how we deal with our seniors. Mr. Gumbs, thank you so much for sharing what you share, and I'll be bringing you back in from time to time, especially as the development goes on. All right, folks. Want to thank you so much for sharing the time with us here this morning on People's Voice. The voice you heard this morning was Mr. Ed Gumbs. And if you didn't know anything about it, I'm sure if you were listening all along, you would have known exactly why he is so vocal and is involved in what's going on. It's the wish of his mom. So he's glad to fulfill that wish. All right. I want to thank you so very much once again for joining us. And I want to thank Mr. Gubbs for sharing his time. Hopefully you have benefited from the program this morning. We'll be back again next Sunday with another interesting discussion and topic that which you can be a part of. But in the meantime, you take care, and I'm saying goodbye and see you next time.